Paul Schommer used to be a wrestler.
Growing up, I was like most kids in Northeast Wisconsin, played soccer, ran cross country, but I would say that my main sport for a lot of my childhood was wrestling. I loved how tough the training was at times, but also both the simplicity and the complexity of it.
Paul Schommer used to think he had to wrestle a certain way.
There was always pressure to, try to cut some weight before a meet or before a tournament.
And Paul Schommer used to believe that was the only way to be successful.
Throughout that summer, between my 8th grade year and my freshman year of high school, I ended up dropping a lot of weight and just developed a full-on eating disorder. I was not ever a big kid to begin with, and I mean, at that point in that September, I was completely emaciated, and you could tell, like I was skin and bones, to the point where I was very unhealthy.
Wrestling has never been easy, but this was a new opponent for Paul Schommer, one more intimidating than any physical presence, and one he eventually had to face head on.
Anorexia was not like, that was not thrown around. At that time, it was more like, I'm depressed and we need to do things to start to make me happier again. I thought eating disorders were like the dumbest thing ever. Like, why would you starve your body? And two, to be a male with an eating disorder would be very embarrassing. I don't think it was until probably a month or two later that I really started to realize, like, I have an eating disorder, and this is the main reason why I'm having these problems.
During Paul's freshman year of high school, he tried what's known as outpatient therapy, with several doctor's appointments and counseling sessions. But the approach wasn't working, and after his father passed away in a car accident midway through the school year, Paul went into his own version of survival mode.
And to be honest, I was just like manipulating every single one of those treatment options through the entire way. I would, whether it be, drinking water right before I had to go weigh in at the doctor, or I would just talk my way out of options or through therapy. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. It was like I was trying to protect myself in the only way that I knew how at that point. I was just, I don't know how you'd say it. I wasn't getting better. I was staying pretty much the same.
Before his sophomore year, the decision was made to try inpatient therapy, which meant Paul would stay for months at the Rogers Behavioral Health Center in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
And I remember begging my mom, like, let me come home. And like, God bless my mom, because she was just like, Paul, I can't let you come home. Once I saw that like I wasn't gonna go anywhere, I felt like the only way I was gonna get out was if I did the program.
Paul's mental and physical health finally improved. He eventually returned to school and was introduced to a sport that was the furthest thing from wrestling.
When I first started skiing and did some of those races, it was just something so new that was so magnetic to me. Just like being out in the woods where it was quiet and the cold air just kind of like made me feel like I was coming alive. The sound of like the poles on the cold, crunchy snow. Finally doing a sport for the first time in my life that I did because I truly enjoyed it. I wasn't trying to become something great. It was kind of an escape.
Cross-country skiing in high school led Paul to the College of St. Scholastica in Duluth, Minnesota. His college coach then introduced him to something a little more unique.
Biathlon is a sport that combines cross-country skiing and shooting, and in Europe is the most watched winter sport.
Paul started training for the biathlon in 2015 after graduation and made the U.S. national team just a few years later. He qualified for the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing and traveled all over Europe in early 2023 for international competition.
We'll start in Finland, then we'll go Austria, France, then Slovenia, Germany, Italy, back to Germany for World Champs.
When he's not competing across the pond, Paul's either in Sioux Falls, South Dakota or Fargo, North Dakota, while his wife Jillian completes her medical residency. Free time isn't really a luxury Paul can afford, but he certainly had the opportunity to reflect on where he's been and where he's going.
It took, I would say, probably a good 3-4 years for me to finally get to that place where it was I really don't feel like I'm struggling with these things anymore. I think a lot of times people think oh, are you in recovery? I would say no, I feel I am recovered.
Paul Schommer used to be a wrestler, but he doesn't have to wrestle anymore.
Every single day we wake up, it's the beginning of the path towards tomorrow, in that we have the opportunity today to become better and take one step closer to whatever that goal is that we have for ourselves. To now see what I've done, it makes me want to encourage people to say, hey, I don't know what's on the path ahead of you, but it could be something that you never expected. It could be something great.
Now, unfortunately, Paul recently had knee surgery after a couple of competitions in Europe, so he's back here in Sioux Falls rehabbing now, and he'll be in the Dakotas, whether it's North or South Dakota, until at least 2025, while his wife completes her residency. He says it was tough to come to grips with the fact that he did indeed have an eating disorder, but that he's much more comfortable sharing his experiences now. In fact, when he has time, he goes back to the Rogers Center in Wisconsin and shares his story with the patients there to let them know that they can overcome exactly what he overcame.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Build Your Base with Beef Sports Nutrition and Training Program.